I want to be honest with you, I have my very own definition of glowing up. To me, it has little to do with the outside world and a lot more with entering a state of being where we appreciate and value ourselves. I got inspired by the seasonal glow ups we see everywhere. A spring glow up, a summer glow up, a autumn glow up, or a winter glow up. Because we've just entered a new season, I felt like maybe I would give or share a different perspective on how we can truly glow up and work on the core essence of what a glow up really means. When we talk about glow up, we want to feel more confident, we want to be more confident, we want to look what confidence would look like. So to me, it all starts and ends with self-worth. I've done a few things one traditionally does to glow up. I went to the hairdresser, I got myself new clothes, I go back into my workout routine, and yet I still believe that this is only 1% of what a true, deeper glow up actually is. And so if I had to start again from a time where I didn't like my body, and I didn't like my habits, and I barely even liked myself, here's what I would do to change all that and become confident. There are some indicators or symptoms of low self-worth. And these might be ones that you wouldn't traditionally assume have anything to do with self-confidence or self-worth. Low self-worth can mean you stress when receiving good things. You have or feel some form of imposter syndrome when good things are happening to you, when things that you have been wishing for are actually coming to life. You compare yourself to others, and that could mean your work, yourself, your looks, anything about you. You compare it, and once you compare, you feel less than or not as good or any really self-criticizing emotion. You self-sabotage. You engage in some form or habit of self-sabotaging. You experience a lot of self-doubt, whether it's venturing onto something new or trying things that you haven't done before. Anytime you move outside your comfort zone, you feel incredible self-doubt. When someone criticizes you or gives you feedback that isn't positive, you always tend to go and find a way to self-doubt yourself. Procrastination is also a form of low self-worth, feeling like you aren't deserving of achieving something or working towards it. You aren't deserving of any of these things. So you procrastinate to sort of not even experience the potential failure you might think you would have. Making fun of someone in front of someone else. And I am guilty of this one. And this one I hadn't connected yet when I realized that. Perfectionism is a sign of low self-worth, and fear of abandonment. I could go into each and every one of them, but I will continue and just leave them as they are. If you feel like you have one to all of these indicators, then maybe this video truly is for you and you want to figure out how to step out of it. I want this to feel like a sister talk. I want you to feel like everything I'm sharing with you is things I have experienced myself. These are things I have been guilty of doing, and the reason I want to share it is because I've worked through them. Some I still have to work through, most I feel like I've worked through, and I feel like that information, that the things I've learned from it could help you. But essentially I want this to feel like a cozy, warm hug of a talk, if that makes sense. So in case you're new here, you might not know how much I love therapy. I started almost three and a half years ago, and it completely changed my self-confidence. I truly believe that opening up to someone I trust and having someone share the right skills, tools to help me gain self-awareness was one of the biggest parts of my self-healing journey. So the tips I'll be sharing with you in this video are steps I used by myself. But I also believe that having had someone to help me through, to help me on the journey, was really important. Which is why I'm so excited that today's sponsor is BetterHelp. If you clicked on this video, then I'm going to take a strong guess that something's interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals. Things like depression, anxiety, or even just struggling through a really hard time don't have to be faced alone. Therapy can give you the tools to approach all of this in a completely different way. So BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is a really important mission because finding the right therapist is really hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can help match you with a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's super easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in my description. It's betterhelp.com/itsjenvo. Clicking that link helps support my channel, but it also gives you 10% off your first month with BetterHelp, so you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. And because finding a therapist is a bit like dating, if you don't really fit with that therapist at no additional cost, without stressing about insurance or who's in your network or anything like that. I know it can seem daunting if you're new to therapy. I sure know it was for me. I guess it was the first step of practicing intentional vulnerability, but I'll get more into that now. Consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/itsjenvo. I'm so grateful for BetterHelp sponsoring this video. Thank you so much. The first step or part to healing low self-worth always is starting with self-identity. We are who we believe to be. And in order to be someone new or a different version of ourselves, we have to start working it into our identity. This is a very common thing. I see a lot of people, and me included, used to say sentences like starting with I'm not the kind of person to exercise. I struggle with maths. I am just naturally overweight. Whatever the sentence I would hear was a clear indication that someone had taken a not self-serving belief and made it their own. Because in some ways it reflected the self-worth level that they were at. So if you have low self-worth, it's very likely that you will have stories of your self-identity that match that low self-worth. People with high self-worth are on the opposite spectrum. And so people who have a higher self-worth level, higher self-confidence, they tend to not speak badly about themselves. And you notice that quite diligently if you start looking for it. People who like themselves or have healed this part of themselves, they don't speak bad about themselves. They don't speak bad about other people. They speak highly of themselves, and usually in a way that isn't condescending or arrogant or any of those things. Because of one simple thing, confirmation bias. If you believe you're this, let's say you believe you're not worthy of love. This probably isn't a conscious belief, a deeply unconsciously anchored belief. And so, according to confirmation bias, we're going to look outside for a confirmation that this belief is true. Our brain is still primitive. We're not as advanced as we think we are. And so if we believe something and we think about something often, and this is something we've also done for years, then our brain will look for confirmation that this belief is right. That means no matter how stupid your belief is, it might not be true, but you might feel like it's true because your brain is looking for confirmation to make it true. This is on the one hand a very intimidating concept, but on the other hand also a very freeing concept, because if you think about it like this, you can literally make your brain and yourself believe anything that fits to you. So you can take anything that you have been speaking about yourself, negative terms, never negative ways, non-self-serving beliefs, and you can turn them around and you can speak them into existence, and over time your brain will start looking for confirmation of those new belief systems. Oh, I should have put a pillow underneath my So over time, your brain will start looking for this new belief, a new confirmation that this belief is true. If you want to change that to you want to be deserving of love, you want to attract really good love, then you need to start speaking to yourself in a way that you are deserving of love and that you are. You have to change the I am sentences, any ways of speaking that confirm or speak about your identity. You have to bullshit your way out of it, because what got you into this is a lot of probably childhood shit and experiences in your teens and maybe early 20s. But to get out of it, you need to you need to start changing your identity. And the easiest way to do that is to start noticing how you speak about yourself, how you think about yourself, how you go about yourself when you do mistakes or when you do something wrong. And once you start picking up on this, you can then change that. You can change the story that your brain has made. And if you stay diligent with it, so consistent, then your brain will start looking for confirmation. So using the path example, you're going to start seeing people that would be worthy of your love, that would be good for you. You would attract people to date that would match the new belief system you have introduced. And that goes with anything. I can give you a good example about this. In my first uni days, when I was in my early 20s, me and my friend would make jokes about being fat. We would find witty ways about doing it, but essentially we'd be telling other people and ourselves that we feel fat. Now, I don't think we were fat. I think we believed it to the core that our outside world was looking like it. So yeah, I had more weight than I was comfortable with. I think my friend did as well. But that was an indicator of how we viewed ourselves, and it was so deeply embedded to our identity that even with dieting and with working out and trying these things, I remember my friend trying to cook healthy for the both of us every evening. It wouldn't really change much, because even if we lost maybe a few kilograms, it didn't change the core belief that we had. And the belief was we are overweight, and it didn't just stop at that. We were fat, and everything that came with it. So because I'm this, I'm not worthy of that, or because I'm this person won't like me, or this was the core belief, and everything around it was working based on that belief. And now if I had to go back and start again, I would probably just tell myself to avoid saying I am sentences that aren't true. I am sentences that are not serving myself, that aren't lifting myself up, that aren't helping me. Why would I believe something that isn't helping me when I can literally just change it by speaking different about myself, by thinking different about myself? So yeah, that's the first thing I would probably tell my younger self to look out for when trying to change my confidence levels. So now the second step or part has a lot to do with the first one that we touched on, and it is self-respect. When we have low self-worth, we also don't really respect ourselves. We're not a priority for ourselves. We don't really think we're deserving of being a priority, and so we don't value ourselves. We are probably less likely to be consistent and diligent with moving our body, eating better, living the way we want to support how much we respect ourselves. People who are self-confident, they also are usually self-disciplined, because self-discipline to them translates into self-respect. I'm going to start every day and every moment of my life respecting the shit out of myself. Because if I respect myself, everyone around me will start to respect me also. People go off based on how you treat yourself, and that will decide how they will treat you. So if I want to appear more self-confident, and in the beginning you really start appearing more than you actually are, you start with self-respect. You start practicing habits that show that you respect yourself, habits that support the actual life you want to be living. And I know this might sound easy. I don't think it is as straightforward as like, okay, I'm gonna respect myself now, deal done. Like, no, I have a complete video about how to go about building better discipline, and I'm going to link it up here. It's called How I Went from Lazy to Disciplined, and I think it explains more how self-discipline ties into self-respect and how we can actually start with the habits to then build up the confidence. So if you'd like to know more details about this, check that video out and then come back to this one. Because this was just a brief part I felt like talking about, which is why I'm now jumping to the next one, which is intentional vulnerability. And I spoke about it in the first segment about therapy. Intentional vulnerability is so important. I can't even, it's so important, and I wish I had known this when I felt my least confident, when I felt the most self-doubt, when I felt like I wasn't worth much. I wish I would have known this. When we don't grow up feeling emotionally safe, emotionally seen and valued, we are most likely to adapt this self-protection shell, these self-protection mechanisms to cope with whatever we were living with. We didn't feel safe in our bodies, and we didn't feel safe about being ourselves. There's so many different versions of this and how it can look like. When we felt like we had to become someone else to please a parent, that is why we probably don't feel safe being vulnerable and being our true self. It's just an example. I personally had that. I felt that in order to connect with one parent, I had to become a different version of myself to get some sort of emotional connection or a sort of warmth from them. And so I would tailor to their likes, their preferences, what they enjoy doing, and I would pretend to myself that I would like it as well to connect. And having done that as a child meant I didn't feel safe about truly being myself to other people. I would, with individual people, become what I thought they wanted me to be in order to be liked and just to please. Which was bizarre because I always felt confident. I didn't feel like I would be the bullshitting kind, but this was something that was running very subconsciously, very deep in me. This was a way of just being safe as a child in my environment, of feeling like I could connect, because a child needs to feel safe, and the way they feel safe is if they can connect with their parents, because that increases the chances of them taking care of them, and that increases their overall survival. And if we didn't have that in childhood, I feel like it plays a huge role in our level of being comfortable with being vulnerable. I think vulnerable as a term itself has gotten such a bad rap, and I'm really sad about it, because we see people being confident and we don't associate it with being vulnerable. I believe true confidence is being able to be intentionally vulnerable. Because if you're truly okay with yourself, if you've done the work, then you are so okay about sharing who you really are and about your real belief systems and everything that you stand for, and you feel confident. Because if someone doesn't like it, if someone disapproves of this, you're fine. You don't care about it. If it's this person that you love, obviously their feedback, you will feel something, but it doesn't change anything. You are confident, which means you are confident in your beliefs. You are confident in your ability to take criticism and feedback, and it won't crumble you, because you've done the work and you know what it means to know that many people will have many opinions and not all of them will match yours, which means yours can still stand. I hope that makes sense. And so the truth is, if we want to become more confident, we have to lower our guard. It seems contradicting, but it is necessary. If we want to feel confident, we have to feel capable of feeling hurt and feeling pain. We have to feel comfortable with allowing ourselves to feel the entire spectrum of emotions and know that we'll be okay by the end of it. I think that is at the core of true confidence. And that doesn't mean you should be naive and just trust everyone and just do anything. No, not at all. Please don't assume that. What I'm saying is pretending less to be someone, speaking your truth more, standing behind your values, being kinder about what you believe, and just trying to feel a bit more self-empowered with that new perspective on things. And I can give you another example of that. I think now people really value how open I am. And I can give you an example about that. I think when people started to notice a shift in my energy, in my confidence levels, was also the same time when they noticed how open I was and how comfortable I felt being vulnerable. And it made me feel really self-empowered, because I went through the depth and the darkness of working through the low self-worth, that I gained all of this confidence of having worked through it, having come to the other side, that I felt like nothing could really shake me. I felt like my beliefs were really good beliefs. I felt very proud of having changed belief systems, having changed the way I speak. And so I felt really comfortable being open and vulnerable. There were still times when I felt like, maybe was this inappropriate? And I felt like I would go into this self-doubting sphere. But overall, I feel like having been open and vulnerable has only ever benefited me and everyone else. Even if I felt like people didn't understand me, even if I thought even if I assumed that they thought I was a bit crazy, I always left feeling proud of myself. I felt like I entered, and I felt like I gave a level of depth that people probably don't experience in today's world. I feel like everything is very superficial. Things are very nice and pretty. When people ask us, how are we? I'm good, how are you? We put on this layer of protection against the world, and it doesn't actually protect you, it just shields you, and it stops you from experiencing the world. It stops you from learning through the world. And I also have a great book recommendation, because in my last few videos you guys have asked me for book recommendations. Talking about vulnerability, the Daring Greatly from Brené Brown is a fantastic read. It was one of the first books on self-improvement that I started reading. It was around the time I started dating my boyfriend, and I was very insecure. I was very self-conscious. That was the time I really saw what low self-worth I actually had. And I read the book, and it made me feel really empowered to stand behind being open and vulnerable. And I think it changed the trajectory of my relationship, and how we to this day are in our relationship. So I hope that makes sense. I also don't have a script today's video. This is all very free-handly. I'm just really speaking from the heart and what comes to mind in the moment. To wrap vulnerability up, I think it's the most important part to self-confidence. It really, really changes everything when we understand that vulnerability is such a strength. It's so sexy. It's so cool when someone can be vulnerable but still be very confident about being vulnerable. I think the most fake confident people are usually the ones that aren't truthful, or they lack the ability to be vulnerable. They always want to seem a certain way. They try and control the way people see them. There is this fear of actually being themselves. So true confidence is when you feel the sense of safety with them, and you trust that this person is who they say they are. And that starts with vulnerability and being true about yourself and others. And now the last part of this is outside the self. And what that means to me is all these parts we're talking about ourself, like the self itself. But now we have to talk about stepping outside of it, our environment. I think if we want to become more confident, we have to be around the right people. And if we are around self-conscious, low self-worth, self-criticizing people, if you try and start changing around them, they won't most likely change with you. They'll think you're a bit like, you really, like, you're gonna stop making jokes about this. If I, in the moment, like going back to the example with my friend and I making jokes about being fat, if I in that moment would have said, oh, don't say that, you're not fat, or I wouldn't have supported that self-destructive way of speaking, she would have felt uncomfortable and the friendship wouldn't have been able to maintain. So I think if we want to change our level of confidence and we want to step into a new era of truly being ourselves and feeling good about being ourselves and just feeling confident, having high self-worth and having our outside world reflect our inside world, then we have to really reflect on the kind of people we have in our life. When I think about stages in my life, the people I had around me always reflected my low self-worth. And I think as I was changing that, the people in my life also changed. Some grew with me and others just didn't. So I think if we want to step into a new way, it's hard to do that if we have people around us who think it would be really weird or cringy, or who would judge us, or who would hold us back, or who would say things like, who do you think you are? Like, or why would you say that? Like, if you have that much criticism in the beginning phase of trying to change something, it's just going to demotivate you and you're not going to continue it. Like, why would you even? You're starting something new and someone shits on it straight away. Like, it's just not going to happen. So that's why I think it's really important to reflect on the people we have in our life. Give it a thought. Do these people feel like they're capable of growing with us? You can also have a chat with them if it's a really close relationship, and say, hey, I really noticed that, and this is where vulnerability comes in, I've noticed that I don't feel very worthy of things. I feel very unconfident in multiple situations, and it's showing in the way I take care of my body. It's showing in the way I go about my work life. It's showing in my romantic relationship, and I want to change it. That means I'm going to start trying to be careful about how I speak, especially about myself. This has nothing to do with you. This is just a personal journey I am on. So it would be really helpful if you could be mindful of not being too critical in the beginning, because it would demotivate me straight away. And just having that chat can be really helpful. Obviously, if the relationship isn't at that level where even this chat might seem really weird or therapeutical, then maybe also don't have it. Maybe just distance yourself a little bit if you can. A lot of the time it'll be family and close friends who will make this really difficult. At other times it can also be a romantic partner. If they've experienced you only on a low self-worth vibe, it can be very intimidating to them to see you change, because they might have similar issues and your changing might be a threat to them. So there's different ways of how this could be difficult around other people. So my personal preference, or my personal tip here, would be to take some more time with yourself, because you already get so much criticism from yourself. You don't need it from other people. Distance yourself a little bit, give yourself space, maybe spend less time with your friends in the beginning. Maybe if your boyfriend or girlfriend or just general partner is you feel like this could be too much for them, or they might give you too much pushback, maybe take a bit of space from there as well. If you live together, you can also do it. In the beginning, when I was doing it, was just in our spare room, and I would do a lot of journaling and a lot of watching YouTube videos, and I would do it by myself. But I was also very lucky that I had a man that whenever I learned something new, I would run to him and be like, I learned this and this, and he was so excited to hear me do it. So watching who you are around, the people that you have in your life, is one part of this outside perspective. But the general understanding that whatever you feel worthy of is what your outside will reflect back to you. If you're in a bad relationship, one that you don't really love, if you have a job you don't like, if you are doing things that aren't good for you or you just don't like, but you don't feel like you're worthy for more, then your outside world is just going to reflect that back to you. And that was really, really prominent for me. When I started changing, I started realizing how my entire outside world was a reflection of how I felt about myself. How can I attract a good job, people that are incredible, inspiring people in my life, a partner that is fantastic? Like, how can I attract that if I literally feel terrible about myself, if I think I'm terrible looking, if I don't like myself, if I don't like my personality, if everything I do is wrong, if I constantly self-criticize? How am I going to attract these things? I won't. I'll just have an environment that reflects that back to me. So a great way of realizing where you are in your self-worth spectrum / journey is just having a look at your life and how much of that makes you feel very confident and empowered and great, and how much of that doesn't. And then you can go about, okay, so it's an indicator. So watching about how my external life is going is a great way of looking at, okay, I'm taking great care of myself. Because, and I keep blabbering on about this, you can let me know in the comments how you feel about this, but throughout my entire self-healing journey, I realized that it was always a constant up and down. My self-confidence journey wasn't linear. There were times when it was like this and then down and then this and then straight, and there's always dips because there's things that will always make me feel shaken if it's new. So it's definitely not a linear journey. I really hope this makes sense. I really hope it does. These are just my personal thoughts on self-confidence, and more from the perspective of less of how I'm looking and, you know, being this like stunning looking person or having the perfect outfit or being this Instagram girl that has it all figured out. No, I think it has a lot to do with inner work. These are my first few steps on topic, my first steps and tips on this. If you would like another video, let me know. Let me know if you would like a more step by step on like how you can act it out video, or if you would just like more points, because obviously there's a full spectrum of confidence. These are the points that I feel like are very true to me right now and are very important to as a basis foundation. I feel like these things are very important to me because if someone would have told me these things when I was 20 years old, it could have maybe helped me ease into this journey more gently. Maybe I didn't have to learn as a crash course everything myself. So yeah, I hope my sisters watch this. I hope they watch to the end as well so that they get this input. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you for BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. I'm very grateful for all of you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts, anything, any feedback, any ideas of videos you would like, let me know in the comments because it's so helpful for me. I love tailoring my videos to your needs. Yeah, so let me know and I'll see you in next video. Bye.